Welcome back. So after delaying for a very long time, say over 2 months, over the case of the former Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, President Muhammadu Buhari finally wielded the big stick last week by formally sacking both men from their positions. Don't forget that both Babachi Lawal and the former SGF now, and Ayoke of the NIA had been on suspension all this while. But the president's action came months after he received the report of the investigation panel, which actually probed both men. That panel, of course, was headed by the present vice president, actually, as Vice President Yemi Osinbajo. The report was never made public, and for a very long time, the president came under sustained public pressure to act on the issue. Well, he's now done so, and of course, people have been hailing him for that. Everyone is now waiting to see when both men would be prosecuted, since some of the anti-corruption agencies are now taking over the matter. Boss Mustafa has actually been appointed to replace Babachi Lawal as SGF, but some still say the president still needs to do further house cleansing in the presidency when you consider other controversial cases like what is now termed Maina Gate. So the question is, could this presidency actually be undermining its own fight against corruption? I still have Evans Ufeli and Libros Oshoma in the house. Evans, let me start with you. Both men, I mean, the former SGF and the former NIA DG have both been sacked. What should we see next?
Yes, let's even look at the circumstances surrounding their sack first. It took the president a very long time. Just like it took him 6 months before he could appoint his cabinet. Now it took him this long. Eventually, Nigerians came up with a lot of pressure on him, and upon that, both of them were sacked. But I think that the cleansing that is ongoing is better attacked from the presidency itself.
From within?
Yes, from the presidency, because if you look at it, the chief of staff of the president, you know, over time.
Everybody keeps talking about the chief of staff.
Yes, because he's the clearinghouse in the presidency. He is like the administrator of the presidency, because you cannot see the president if you don't see him. He's the one who receives all letters, all memos, vet them, decide the one the president should attend to and the one the president will not attend to. That is why.
So he decides what the president sees.
Yes, and what the president wakes up to him. The president wakes up to him and go to bed. He's the last person the president sees. You understand? But if you look at the controversy surrounding that man, and because you need somebody with clout, you need somebody with certain level of intelligence, efficiency, and maturity
an man, anyway,
to create. You understand? But if you look at Ibe Kachuku saga, the chief of staff was at the center of it. Okay, now we have the issue of Maina. The chief of staff is in the center of the matter in terms of the activity that transpired before now. So I think that if this president or this government have said they want to fight corruption, they must do it holistic, because it seems like there's a situation where the head of service had said that...
yeah, we saw that heated argument between the head of service and the chief of staff.
Yes, and
he said we just similarly heated argument.
Yes, an argument going on, because we could just create some level of conjecture because there was no audio to that. But we know there was a problem there, okay? So the president must do more of that, must clean up the system to allow democracy to work. Because as it stands now, democracy is really stifled, okay? The communication link, there's no cohesiveness in this government. That is the problem, because a junior minister cannot assess the president. If a minister cannot assess the president, if a leader cannot assess a leader, what would you say of the led? How can we assess democracy? You understand? If we cannot assess democracy after donating our allegiance, then it means that democracy is not what they have told us it is. Except they have a new definition of it and we're not aware of it. Because for you to do the proper thing, creating possibilities, good governance, democracy, and make things work, you must be able to bring in the right set of person to drive the institution, because every institution is a mental construct, and you need efficient people to drive the process. And if people within are failing, and the president, you understand, is doing nothing about it as regards the engine room, then we're going to have more problems. Until that is clear.
Liberals, let me get your take. I mean, fact is that some people will tell you that, chief of staff are supposed to be seen and not heard, so to speak. But it appears the current chief of staff is not only seen, he's heard, even though he doesn't speak most of the time. But I mean, yeah, he's featured prominently in most of these controversial cases we have seen. Just give me your own take on this whole situation, beginning from the Maina, not the Maina now, the Lawal case.
Even before then, you remember the MTN 500 million scandal, and all of that, and and then the president's wife's allegation that out of 50 appointees, the president it's only can best be said to know only 5 out of 50 people. And that you have people who are around him, and then Junaid Mohammed's allegations too, that these are relations that want to pull this man down, and that they are the ones actually running the game, because the position of the chief of staff, because the president, the office of the president is a very busy one. It plays between politics, social issues, and administrative and all of that, economic, and so you would need somebody that will hold forts, like to borrow Evans word, that would be a clearinghouse. While you attend to other issues, the administration of that office is ongoing. So, and not somebody that will be enmeshed in politics, especially when you want to do it differently. You can hardly remember who Obasanjo's chief of staff was. Even Yar'Adua's chief of staff. Yeah. It was Ogiadome during Goodluck Jonathan, because also a lot of people felt, look, this man made it possible to assess, the president, but also not enmeshed in this kind of controversy. Until now, it's anytime the president is mentioned, you must hear the mention of the chief of staff also. And a few other people around. Lawal, what's his name now? The cousin to the president, Maman Daura, Lawal Daura, and because the question is, you begin to ask yourself, the DSS letter to the Senate nailing Magu. Till date, it's obvious that the president wants Magu for that office. But till date, he has not done anything about that letter. And nobody in the DSS has denied the fact that letter actually emanated.
And we could say it's also clear from the case that while the president wants Magu,
the people around him,
but within the presidency, some people
don't want Magu.
There's a lack of cohesion in governance.
So the letter, and then the DGDSS
quite surprising
sits on the board of EFCC.
Yeah, that's
it's not acting enough.
It sits on the board of EFCC. Yeah. So if there were issues, one would have expected that you brief either the president or brief Magu, but you do now write a damning letter in the same presidency to write a damning letter to the Senate. That is undermining. And
somebody from the presidency must have seen that letter.
That is undermining the presidency and the president. And then that aside, the case of Lawal Babache, when he was asked, when he was informed that you've been suspended by the president, he said, who is the presidency?
Yes.
And that's why the moment Boss Mustafa was appointed, quickly, Junaid Mohammed also came out and said, look, don't be deceived that this man is a first cousin to the outgone one. And so it's probably a boardroom politics that played out here.
For me, it doesn't.
It doesn't. But then, because if you allow issues like this to fester, people now begin to no longer look at merit, but the politics behind some of these, steps that you take. One would have expected that the issue of, and then it took the Senate investigation for the presidency to act on the SGF. So it wasn't an investigation by the EFCC or the ICPC. And even when the Senate conducted the first investigation, the president said, look, give him fair hearing. And they said, look, what is fair hearing? Fair hearing is not about you must appear. Fair hearing is giving you opportunity to appear, even though you fail to appear. And so then the panel was the investigation. They had to conduct another investigation. Eventually,
the presidency
set up a panel to look into it. You know, so all of this shows
from the outcome of the president's action. I mean, we can clearly tell what the findings of that.
Yes, and then from what we learned, the findings was that both men should be eased off from their duty and prosecuted. But the question now is, if you remember also during Obasanjo's era, when the Nigerian Port Authority investigation that the EFCC conducted, Obasanjo, because his, Man Friday, Chief Olabode George was indicted in that report, asked that it be redone over and over again until he had to, he caved in and allowed prosecution. So in this case, because for the benefit of past experience. So when you begin to see steps like this, you just tell yourself it's almost as clear that, something is not going to happen. Because also, the statements credited to Garba Shehu, I think it is high time the president should ease Garba Shehu out of, his media team. Garba Shehu is doing more damage to that office than good. The first time was the rodents. And then the second one was the Maina's case that he was smuggled back in by members of the PDP. And then when he was asked on this issue of the SGF and the Ayoke, he said that the president had done his bit. He was blowing hot and cold from the same mouth.
Until a statement later came out.
Initially, look, the president has done his bit. It is not for him to direct EFCC on what to do. Secondly, he said that these people, they've been on suspension. And so virtually, what that means is they've been on suspension, and so they'd be probably punished for the offense they've committed. And then until he came out to say, look, the EFCC definitely would do something. If the question now would be, if this had been, some other persons, like we said.
Yes.
Immediately, what you hear is that the government had handed them over to EFCC for thorough investigation.
What exactly is the difference between what they did and what the person now in prison did?
So this is how you win public confidence. And so, to answer your question directly now, the fight against corruption, if the president must redirect that fight and make it believable, I think he needs to be on top of his game. He needs to take back control from his men who are asking who is the presidency, because even now, very soon, if care is not taken, we will be asking the same question.
Who is the presidency? I mean, it's quite sad. And the fact is that you begin to get, at some point, you begin to get the impression that, well, okay, fine, the government is fighting corruption, but it appears it is undermining its own fight.
Yes, it's undermining its own fight, because Metu, for example, what is the difference between what Metu did and what Babacha Lawa and what is there any difference? Is there any difference between, because it's about corruption. Everything is about corruption. So why do you relieve them without making strong recommendation that EFCC, they should be picked
immediately? But of course,
we're
watching to see what the EFCC does with this case. I mean, the case of Babachi Lawal and no doubt at all. Somehow, I think you look at all of these cases, you begin to feel that, especially when it comes to getting justice and, fighting corruption in this country, that the most important thing sometimes that you actually need is for people holding any particular office, or for people to rise above their, personal affiliations, sentiments. So whether it's your friend that is involved or your relative that is involved, just let the law take its course.
DEJI, let's take the case of Maina, for example. Because by now, one would have expected that, we have a clear-cut direction as to this Maina issue. By now, we ought to have seen that some people are shown the exit door. You don't begin to wait or, pander towards, oh, is it right, is it wrong? Look at the role the Attorney General played, and then some persons even coming out issuing statements to the effect that Maina had two judgments, one reinstating him, one quashing his warrant of arrest, when in actual fact, Maina had one judgment and one ruling. All of them, the two of them, bordering on the warrant of arrest. The first one was in 2013. The second one was in 2016. And that in spite of all of this, in July 2015, the EFCC, while charging Orosai, Maina was, I think, the second or third accused person in that charge sheet. But because he absconded, he couldn't have been tried in absentia. And so the court was not given the opportunity to try him. So he's neither discharged or acquitted or pronounced guilty. And so, why all of this? And this charge also was filed in the name of the Attorney General. And then the Attorney General will issue an advice, 2 letters, requesting that the man be reinstated and introducing what was not in the judgment of Justice Adamu Bello. You know, so when you look at all of this, you now begin, you are still, when you say you're still looking at this document and you're setting up panels to look into it and to find out who is culpable.
You give the impression you're trying to buy time.
Exactly, exactly. That you're trying to buy time. Sorry. In the matter involving Olisametu and the SGF and the former president, we said it was outrageous for that. One would have expected the former president, for all these action, he should be able to, should be bold enough to face Nigerians, even in court, to explain his role and not just keep quiet. In the same vein, if after saying all of this, you still open your mouth tomorrow to say, oh no, this is an isolated case of Maina, and so he shouldn't be treated the same way. For me, we're not sincere and we're not fair to ourselves.
No doubt at all.
Sorry, my brother.
No doubt.
And
I'll get the final word from
in Maina's situation, he has been saying that he is not even the only one who is involved in this.
My problem with him is that he should just come out and talk.
Take the benefit of the protection given by this government.
I really don't understand.
And go to court and talk.
I really don't understand his problem. Stop speaking from hiding. Come out and talk.
Yes.
And the fact is that whether you like it or not, you cannot run away forever.
Yes.
At some point, you have to come out.
Yes.
So come out and talk now. And I mean, it's not as if anybody is passing judgment on Maina. He's come out to say he's not guilty. Corruption is fighting, and all of that.
Yes. I mean, and the police are not invited that spokesperson to direct them to.
No, for me, I think it's good. But the most important thing is he should just come out of hiding and say it. If there are people who are actually involved in this, they're out there. So
you say they want to kill you. You've been protected by DSS and the police.
So I don't get it. So
now there are some
we have to end this discussion
who are even in protective custody.
We're out of time.
They say that Suki is in protective custody. You will be given protective custody.
Exactly.
Come and say, you know what you know. The government can decide not to tell us.
That's it. So you come and say it. I mean, I think he continues to make his case worse.
Yes.
By choosing to run away.
Yes,
and you can't continue to be a fugitive forever. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program and for sharing your thoughts with us. Let's just see how all of this unfolds. We're still watching to see what the court does with the Jonathan Olisametu issue, and we're waiting to see what the EFCC or ICPC or whatever does with Babachi Lawal and the others. Well, we'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll be discussing something else. Stay with us. On DEJI360, we don't just ask the questions. What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it? We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action. People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dollars that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly. God forbid that I go to join that panel.
DEJI360, providing clarity to issues.